Hey, what's up, guys? This is Dr. Lee Horan with Ignite Chiropractic, and I got a couple minutes I wanted to go over bedwetting with you, and not just bedwetting for youngsters and kids, but bedwettings for teenagers and adults, which is a real thing and it's an issue. So my guess is that if it doesn't affect you, you're gonna just click right past this video because again, it doesn't pertain to you. But for those that it does pertain to you, this is probably gonna be one of those days where you're gonna perk up and you're gonna be listening closely, because bedwetting as a teenager or bedwetting as an adult is just, I mean, it's demoralizing to start with. So psychologically, it's just very, there's a lot of shame wrapped around it. But I want to get to, aside from all of that, I want to dive into one, kind of how this can be corrected and how it can be fixed. So we see here at Ignite a lot of people that come in, and especially they're bringing in their kids because they're hearing that, oh, well, like, how does chiropractic fix bedwetting? I thought it was just neck pain and back pain and stuff, and I didn't even realize that kids get adjusted. There's a lot of times things I hear, and then they come into our office and they see kids getting adjusted all the time, and they're hearing the stories from their parents talking about, like, oh yeah, I mean, they're becoming more mild-mannered, they're listening better, they're sleeping better. So there are all these behavioral benefits that these kids are getting, as well as bedwetting is a huge one. So kids that are, it's like, oh, well, he's 4 or 5 and he bedwets several times a day, all the way up to, they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and they have not stopped bedwetting, or older. And it's just some part of their daily life is to take their laundry and their sheets, as a kid or as the parents, and you're doing laundry pretty much every day to wash the sheets, because every single day these kids are bedwetting. So there's a spectrum of how often it happens, but when they start getting adjusted here, parents are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this was an issue. I just kind of thought maybe because they were young, there was something, or they've tried everything and they've been taking medications. A lot of times as kids get older, because it is such a shameful thing to have to deal with, if you go over to a friend's house or you go to camp or whatever it is, they'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will prescribe basically an anti-diuretic. A diuretic is what makes you basically pee out water, and an anti-diuretic holds the water inside. So basically you're forcing the body to stop doing what it's supposed to do, which is to get rid of toxins through urination, and you're holding that in, which again, if it's in a formative years, doing that on an occasional basis can be okay, but again, why is that happening? And you have a lot of nerves that are controlling things that you can't feel, right? You have your bladder. You're not really thinking about how the muscle in your bladder is relaxing or contracting or expanding. You're not thinking about your intestines, which are constantly moving nonstop. Those intestines are moving and they're working behind the scenes, digesting food, moving that food along the tract until you have a chance to excrete it. And all those nerves that come from your brain, they're sending signals. Again, they're things that you're not thinking about. It's all unconscious. In fact, the brain deals with, I think it's 90% of the function of the brain is all subconscious. It's all things that you don't ever have to think about, and so very, very little is things that we're actually actively aware of. And controlling the bladder falls into that category. It's under the autonomic nervous system, meaning it's an automated, regulated process by the body that we don't have to think about. So here's what happens is if the brain starts to become imbalanced in the areas where it's controlling how your bladder is functioning, and whether you're able to hold that smooth muscle contracture, whether it's a loss of bowel control, which it usually is not. In fact, it's usually a lack of awareness that there is a need to use the restroom. Also, at nighttime, it's like if you don't have an issue with it, most people can go throughout the entire night without having to wake up to go pee. Now, one of the things that we'll notice is when people started getting adjusted, people that woke up in the middle of the night to go pee, 2 times a night, 3 times a night, depending on who it is, they start to report back to us. They're like, you know what? I'm actually sleeping through the whole night, which is crazy, because normally I always wake up at least once or twice to go pee in the middle of the night, and I'm not having to do that anymore. So is it really that in the middle of the night your bladder has to void, Or is it the fact that your smooth muscle control is absent, meaning the muscle that's holding your bladder doesn't stay firm, doesn't stay tight, and instead it starts to fill up, and you can't hold your bladder throughout the entire night because of the weakness in the muscles. And it's definitely more of that. If I were to give you my professional opinion on what I see most, or what I postulate to be the most common issue of bedwetting, is the lack of smooth muscle control to maintain that throughout the night. So it's not necessarily as much of an awareness thing as it is that control. And so when we're actually making adjustments and we're getting the brain to start to balance out that autonomic nervous system, and that autonomic nervous system is what controls the bladder, it'll balance out, and it balances out the control of that muscles that are surrounding the bladder. And now you're able to hold the bladder throughout the entire night without having issues. Now, when we make adjustments to the spine, a lot of different things can happen. And so, we're not necessarily targeting directly, okay, we're only going to adjust where there's bladder control, because that's not the way the body works. The body is holistic, right? You can't just pinpoint the one area that you want to fix, because this is not a procedure. We're not a bunch of tiny little pieces that are all separate from one another. We are one continuous holistic piece, and so we approach the body in that same way, and that's why we get results, is because we're not segmenting it. We're not looking at it like, oh, your shoulder hurts, so we're working just on your shoulder. No, we say, well, you're all one piece, so maybe that shoulder has something to do with your hip, which is very, very likely to be the case. It could be somewhere entirely different than where you're actually feeling the issues, and we're able to restore the brain-body connection and the body connection back up to the brain, and those messages go back and forth. Normally, you make new tissues, you have proper nervous system control, and then your body actually works the way it's supposed to function. So this, hopefully, if you are suffering with bedwetting, or your child is suffering with bedwetting, or somebody who is either an adult or a teenager or even a kid who's going through bedwetting, it is a much bigger deal, even if they make it seem like it's not a big deal. I guarantee you it means the world to that person if they can get this under control. So you would be doing a huge blessing to them to share this information with them, so that they can actually do something to get this under control, where they don't have to resort to drugs, or just not show up, or wear a diaper to bed. So I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. I hope you found this informative, and I will talk to you soon. All right, bye.